Welcome to the premiere episode of The Tactical Catholic with your host, Andy McNutt. Tonight's episode will be about Andy, as he will be talking about himself and introducing us to the Fiat Ministry Network. Live.
Okay, so we're live. This is Tactical Catholic. My name's Andy, and I've never done this before. So, first night, folks.
Yeah, I'm back. How about now? We won't break it. Yeah, we were dead, but that was my fault. So we're already breaking.
Okay.
So go ahead, Andy.
Okay,
welcome.
Good.
Welcome to the Fiat Ministry Network.
Hey, thanks everybody for getting me on the Fiat Ministry Network. And I was telling Kent when we've been talking, I'm not ready for this. I'm not. I mean, I have been on other people's shows, plenty, but I've never had my own show. So my desire for this webcast is to be with my friends here on Fiat Ministry Network and to be able to interact with you folks live, which, if you think about it, there's not a lot of other web shows that do that. I mean, there are plenty of places that folks will do podcasts and you can listen to them at your leisure. But now with Fiat Ministry Network, you can listen to us live. You can get on the chat room and I'll be looking at the chat room and getting distracted. People are going to troll the site or they're going to come on and tell me how fabulous I am. That's fine. Either way, I just like the interaction. I think that's really cool. And so what I wanted to do this first night was just to get on here, get over my scaredness, and just get to know some folks and talk a little bit about what we're going to try to do with the Tactical Catholic. I had told you before, if you follow me on Twitter, if you follow me on my website, tacticalcatholic.com, you know that I don't want to be all things to all people. We're definitely explicitly Catholic people. But the things we talk about on the website aren't just Catholic things. You know, I'm not talking about the Mass every single post. Sometimes I want to talk about coupons. Sometimes I'm going to talk about our Second Amendment rights. I'll talk about politics. Really, no topic is off limits as far as I'm concerned. That being said, any mistake that I make theologically, I own that. That's my fault. If I say something that's out of line, it's not because I'm trying to be a heretic, because I'm going to be a faithful Catholic that's loyal to the teaching authority of the church. And I love our Blessed Mother, and I will love to talk about her a lot. I love to talk about St. Polycarp. If I make a theological error, a true theological error, not just going against whatever particular traditions you have, small t traditions, but if I make a theological error, call me on it, and we'll look in the catechism and I'll fix myself. Really, I really want to be a faithful Catholic, but I do want to help to be able to talk about stuff, not just Catholic stuff, but how our faith affects everything that we do. I mean, we use our faith when we go to Kroger or whatever grocery store you happen to use. We use our faith. Look, you see this? This is my 2-year-old. I'm a dad in a house with lots of kids. And so there'll be times when my kids are going to come in and interrupt the show. That's fine. I mean, they like being on TV. They like to hold my hair. So every now and then my kid's going to come in. That's fine, because that's part of just being a dad. We can't lock ourselves in a room and expect for there to be no distractions. So we want to talk about that kind of stuff too. Right? We talk about that? Okay. So we'll talk about dad stuff and husband stuff, and how we're always wrong as husbands and our wives are always right. We'll talk about all those things. New husbands or guys that are about to get married. I'll help educate you in the wise ways of being a man. And not that I am the perfect man. I'm certainly not, or the perfect dad. But you can learn from my mistakes. And because I think it's cool that we be honest with each other and just, talk about things and talk about scripture.
Yeah.
Now, I'll ramble on for a while until I see you people start lighting up the phones or the message boards.
Yeah.
What I wanted to do tonight, no, what's that? What I wanted to do was kind of tell you how I got here. That way you can decide if this is the show that jingles your bells and makes you, calm down, you're too noisy, makes you want to come back for more, or makes you want to run out of the room screaming. If you've seen me on television before, you say, Mia, that mug looks kind of familiar. I have been on EWTN a couple of times on the journey home with Marcus Grodi, because for several years, I was a Southern Baptist pastor. So I have some perspectives that I think are refreshing and helpful. Since I am a convert, there are things that I like to talk about from my background that I think are very practical and applicable to Catholics. In particular, sacred scripture. A lot of Catholics that I know or have known aren't really comfortable with the Bible. Doesn't mean we don't believe in it, but just maybe they're not as familiar with some of their Protestant friends that can quote a lot of verses back and forth, and maybe they get confused. And so just to give you a little bit of perspective on where I'm coming from. Now, I was raised Southern Baptist. So when I talk about the faith, I proclaim myself here. You're hearing it here first. I proclaim myself to be the president of the Southern Catholic Convention. Thank you for your nomination and election. I hope to be a faithful president to all of you here in the South, because there are not a lot of Catholics in the South. I mean, I think now I'm in Tennessee, and I think Catholics probably represent, 5% of the Christian population.
That's amazing.
And I'm sure you're up near Cleveland, right?
Yeah, we're right by Cleveland, and
so everybody's Catholic.
Well, that's the funny thing. Like, I'm from Erie, Pennsylvania, and there's a Catholic church within 20-mile radius. There's 30 Catholic parishes. Yeah. I mean, and I don't know what it is down south, but it sounds like it's not like that at all.
It's not like that at all. Now, Baptist churches, Methodist churches, they're everywhere. Church of Christ, Church of God in Christ. But yeah, I mean, the diocese in Memphis, where I am, I mean, we do have several Catholic churches, but it's not. I mean, a parish is large, as far as the ground and area that it covers, because there just aren't a lot of Catholic churches.
Yeah.
And that's something I think would be kind of cool too. And I know you and I can talk about it because you're in Ohio and I'm in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Can talk about the differences that we see in Catholic culture, but maybe some other folks, in different states want to chime in and say, well, that's not what it's like in Virginia, or that's not what it's like in California, or I don't know where you are, somewhere in Montana. Yeah. So, because I'm curious to know about that, because I know down here in the South, Catholics are a strict minority, and the information that people have on Catholics is limited, to say the least. So everybody thinks that we worship Mary and we worship statues or whatever. Well, whatever they read in a Jack Chick track or something.
It's kind of funny that I'm wondering what the scenario of Catholics and Christians, because really, I came back to the church through Protestants and through, my friends that are Christians. And so that was a real big help, that, to have that kind of help. I thought that was kind of interesting for me. I needed the Protestants to come and help me get back to the church. Yeah. Do you know the percentage Catholics to,
I don't. That would be an interesting statistic.
Yeah.
I had heard that obviously I think Catholics by population are probably the largest Christian group in the United States, but I had always heard that the second largest group was fallen away Catholics.
Yeah. Yep.
People that leave and they go to another church. Now, this is a newsflash for anybody that was baptized Catholic. and is now, evangelical or whatever, you're still Catholic. If you're baptized, indelible mark on the soul, baby, you're still Catholic. So all you got to do is come to confession and come to mass with us, because you are Catholic. You're just falling away. And I would love to talk to you about it, because why did you leave? Oh my gosh, the Catholic Church is so awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess, and I'm looking, Jay's made a comment here in the chat room.
Right.
Why did I become Catholic? And it's a super long story, but I'm going to tell you a little bit of it tonight, because that's what I plan on talking about anyway. Tonight's the episode where Andy talks about himself. That's the way I tagged it. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. Now, I grew up Baptist, and we went to Baptist church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, Tuesday night for outreach, visitation. I was involved in the youth group, so sometimes we did stuff on other nights. I mean, we were there pretty much all the time. And I have to say, I'm totally super grateful for my mom and dad for raising me to be a Christian. They really showed me what it meant to be a follower of Jesus. And, a lot of people can't say that. A lot of people, grew up and they kind of had to fend it for themselves spiritually, either because mom and dad didn't take faith seriously, or because mom and dad maybe held to a faith that they didn't hold to. So, whatever your circumstance, but for me, mom and dad showed me what it looked like to be a follower of Jesus. So in Baptist speak, I became a Christian at the age of 10 when I asked Jesus to come and to be the Lord of my life. And as a 10-year-old, how seriously can you really take the Christian faith? I mean, I would say that I took it as serious as any 10-year-old could, but not, I wasn't giving lectures on the Trinity or anything like that. It was just going to my Sunday school class and learning about Bible stories. And I certainly had faith in God. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I became a youth, when I was starting my teenage years, that I really kind of geared up my faith life, because we were able to have a full-time youth minister in our church. So that was good, because here's a couple who were really they invested their whole life in teenagers. What can they do to help parents to raise and deal with all the struggles of having teenagers in your house? But that's where I learned just scripture memorization and telling people about Jesus. And I started to realize that I kind of had a knack for talking to people about Jesus. It's something that I enjoy doing. And it's something that I would later understand to be a charism or a spiritual gift, some people call it. But I love to talk, and I still love to talk. And so what ended up happening,
I love to talk too.
Well, what happened was people started saying, even at 14, people would say, well, Andy, there's a youth Sunday coming up, and you're going to be giving the sermon. Oh, well, okay. And, we're going on a mission trip, and Andy, you're going to be leading some of the sermons there. I'm 14, but it was cool to kind of be thrust into a role like that, doing devotions with Fellowship of Christian Athletes or whatever, because I really dug it. I really enjoy talking to people about Jesus and studying my Bible and learning things. And I guess these things just kind of grew and swelled up inside me, because the year before I went to college, I really felt that God was leading me to a career of public ministry. And as a 17-year-old, the only thing that I thought I could do was, well, you could be a pastor or you could be a music minister, and nobody wanted that. Or, I'm a bad singer. Or there could be a youth minister, or I could be like a missionary to a foreign country. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to do the foreign mission work, and I was too young to do youth ministry, because I was a youth. I was 17.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sing, obviously. So pastors, they just seemed logical. I was doing that anyway. So I went to a private college, Christian college, where I got to really study ancient languages like Greek and Hebrew, in sacred scripture and history and philosophy and theology, because that was my career. I'm going to be a Baptist pastor, and why would I want to study business or law or medicine or anything else like that when I'm going to be in ministry? So I studied ministry, got a religion degree, enrolled in graduate school. That was the career path. What actually happened to kick me off the rails was my undergraduate education. Now, disclaimer, and I'm giving what's the thing that you give when people say you can't sue me? You know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
So here, I'll just spell it out.
All right.
So my undergraduate school, you cannot sue me, and you can't go back and hassle the professors because somehow they influenced me to be a Catholic, though it wasn't a Catholic school. That's not the point. What really happened was those teachers were so good at turning me on to scripture and history that I ended up reading myself into the Catholic Church. And so they weren't teaching me the Catholic faith, but the teachers, they were so awesome that I would sit in history class and think, man, history is great. I want to read more history. And as a teacher, that's what you want your students to do. So I studied history, and I studied Greek, and I studied Hebrew, and I studied scripture, and I studied theology. And by the time I graduated college, I was what you'd call a Calvinist. I was very much in line with what I guess a lot of the more conservative Presbyterians would be today, as far as my beliefs on salvation and such. And that didn't sit right with a lot of my Baptist friends or my Pentecostal friends. But again, we're all in this Protestant group, so we kind of had our own little fraternity of, well, at least we're not Catholic. So we could talk about stuff. But the real thing, when I'm studying all this history, I really didn't see a lot of Baptist churches. In fact, I didn't see any Baptist churches. I guess I was just kind of assuming that St. Polycarp and St. Paul, that they were all just good Baptists, and that they went to their little Baptist church there in Smyrna and in Rome and Jerusalem and Antioch, that they're just these little Baptist congregations. But the more I read these guys, the more I realized, no, because they're talking about bishops, they're talking about Eucharist, they're talking about fidelity to the church. Ignatius, St. Ignatius said, where the Bishop of Rome is, there is the Catholic Church. And he said Catholic Church. And, he didn't say there is the Baptist Church.
Right.
So it was frustrating for me to look historically and say, well, I can't find my 20th century beliefs in the first century church. I don't see them. What I did see was a lot of talk about Bishop, Eucharist, these things that my church didn't believe in, and historically rejected. And didn't reject that they happened, but just rejected those teachings and those beliefs. And so I had that going on in my brain. On the other side of my brain, I got married. And of course, guys that have been married, that changes everything.
Yes.
Priorities change. You got to start, you can't just sleep all day. You have to work. And,
right.
It's just everything. And what was funny for us, the month before our wedding, my bride-to-be's parents had been on a spiritual journey of their own, and they were confirmed as Catholics a month before we got married. And so as this staunch Calvinist anti-Catholic guy was sitting in the back pew just burning with rage, thinking, how in the world am I going to get them out of this whore of Babylon, this Catholic Church, demonic group that they're a part of? And if you've met converts, then you know how passionate they are about their faith. So once they came into the church, they started sending us books. And so here's Scott Hahn, and here's Steve Ray, and here's Mark Shea, and you got to, and Tim Staples. You have to read all these, and then we'll talk about them. And I said, I'm not reading your propaganda. I don't want your books. I've got my Bible. I've got everything that I need. And I had my theology. Well, the theology was on this side. I had my theology on this side, then the marriage and the relationship with the in-laws on this side. And it wasn't a bad relationship. It's just I'd never really dealt with Catholics before. I mean, apart from reading history. But yeah, the more that I kept reading history, the more that the things that they were talking about and the things that I would hear if I would ever visit Mass with them, they really started syncing together. And I was able to, just the argument started to get too strong. When you don't see your belief back in history, and you're not seeing it now, in the church that you're in part of now has problems with authority, even as a pastor. And I was a pastor in churches where you're trying to preach a sermon and people just dismiss it. They say, well, no, that's very nice, preacher, but I don't really feel any obligation to do what you're saying. And as a pastor, you start thinking, good grief, man. I've prayed over this particular sermon series for months, because I know that this is something that our congregation struggle with, or the youth group that I was working with. And for people to just dismiss it so flippantly, it really made me want to start to understand authority. And that made me understand the Catholic Church even more, because look at what Jesus started with. A bunch of fishermen, tax collectors, not exactly your A-list, but these guys were faithful to Jesus. Even in their mistakes, they taught faithfully, and God blessed that church, and that church was grown by thousands. People that were dying for their beliefs. It wasn't something flippant or casual. This was something that they were willing to die for, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a faith that's not just academic and not just, well, this is kind of where I've arrived by my studies. I wanted to have a faith that absolutely rubber meets the road, real spirituality that was going to help me be a better man, be a better husband and a dad. And eventually that's what I was going to find in the Catholic Church.
Right. And I think we're going to take a short break in a second. And I think I'm kind of curious for myself just to pick your brain, because knowing how passionate, Protestants or any denomination, I mean, the Catholics trying to grab their Bibles at going to church is difficult. And I'm one of, but that's one thing. I mean, any other denomination, there's that Bible that they have in their hands, and we'll talk about that. We're gonna take a short break, and then we'll get back to the tactical Catholic. And here we go. Hi, it's Ken with the Fiat Ministry Network. Thanks for watching the Joe Miller Unplugged show. Also, we just want to let you all know about how much we enjoy creating new shows for you about different topics of the Catholic faith, and also bringing in some great guests. But we also need your support. Any kind of support, prayer, financial would be great. And please check out our donation button right underneath the video player that you're viewing right now. You also could like us on Facebook, or also follow us on Twitter. We really appreciate any kind of support that you can give us, and we'll definitely do our best to give you the best Catholic shows every Sunday night on the Joe Miller Unplugged show, right here on the Fiat Ministry Network, encouraging all to say yes to Jesus Christ. And we're back.
Fantastic. So you can't see it from the glare, but I put a fez on my head to try to block some of the light. I got these fluorescent bulbs above my head to make it a little brighter in here. So, if you want to wear a fez to the Tactical Catholic show, you are totally welcome. Fezzes are optional, but they are welcome. I'll figure something out about the lights later.
Are you a fourth? What degree knight are you again?
I'm a fourth degree Sir Knight.
Okay.
But I don't have the regalia. So, if for the uninitiated, the Captain Crunch hat and the sword, I don't have that, which would be to be part of an honor guard. But I have made my fourth degree as a knight. So, I've got basically a tuxedo with a social baldric, an emblem that I wear for special occasions, for a 4th degree function.
Okay.
Yeah, are you a Knight of Columbus?
I haven't. No, I haven't got into that. I've been.
Oh.
I know. I need to get. Yeah, you're gonna get. Yeah.
I'm the membership director for my council. You should totally join. It's awesome.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people are, around here, especially in my parish, are very, with the Knights, and it's just, yeah, I got to get there. I'll get there. I will.
Yeah, it's just a quick plug for the Knights of Columbus. A lot of people will try to compare the Knights of Columbus to like the Shriners. This is not a Shriner hat. This is actually because I watched Doctor Who. But the Shriners, there are lots of groups that do a lot of work. And the Knights of Columbus are one of the world's largest men's service fraternities, and founded after Father Michael J. McGivney in Connecticut. And what he was trying to do was find a way for Catholic men to help each other, in particular, to help the families of one of their brothers if they died in a workhouse or a mine. This was a time where Catholics and Irish in particular were persecuted. And so if somebody dies, what happens to the women and the kids? So they wanted to have a way to help keep the kids from having to go to orphanages so that families could stay together. And from that tiny little gathering in Connecticut, this has grown into a huge group that does work worldwide. So, I'm making a commercial, obviously, guys, but if you would go to Knights of Columbus, KOFC.org, and check out the website, just look at what these guys do. I mean, it's fantastic. And if you want to be a part of that, you can bug me, or if your parish probably has a Knights of Columbus council.
Yeah, right.
You can talk to your membership guy there. But I'm really glad that I became a Knight and that I went all the way through the degrees. Every degree it teaches something about being a man and being a Knight. So it's cool. It's a really cool group to be a part of. So that you're my new project, Kent. I'm going to get you.
Yeah, you could definitely. Yes, I will. That will be my one of the other things on my list of. It's just so many things that you can get involved. That's the cool thing. No. With the Catholic Church, you can get involved. I know Jay in the chat room is very passionate about the pro-life movement, and he does Right for Life and over where he's at. And it's just, there's so much you can get involved with the church. And this is, evangelizing, and, please call, if you want to call in, please do. The number is 440-536-3650. And just if you want to call on Skype or even in the chat room, please leave a message. But there's so much involved with the Catholic Church that we take it for granted, especially for me as a, just brought up Catholic and cradle Catholic. You take it for granted compared to someone that like you coming in and wanting to know more about it. And I think that's one thing why some of the brightest Catholics were, Protestant or any kind, they're looking for something, and they're searching for something more, and the full truth of the Catholic Church. So, yeah, it's just great.
Well, and I guess that's part of the reason why I'm even doing this show. Not because I'm a convert or an expert, but I chose the Catholic faith because I really believe that it's the church that Jesus Christ founded. I really believe that the sacraments work. I think that areas of spiritual bondage and difficulty in my own personal life were absolutely shattered. At least their power was shattered in my life so that I could start to grow in ways that I had never been able to grow before as a Protestant. It's not to say that the Protestants can't grow spiritually, because I know they can. I mean, they helped me to become the person that I am today. But man, there's something about sacraments. And so I feel less of an expert and more like a beggar, like a blind beggar who has found some food, and I just want to help other beggars get to the food that I found. I mean, it's Jesus has helped me through his church. I want to help other people get to the church. So if it's talking about hunting and fishing or stewardship or planning a budget or finding a job and writing a resume, you know, family discipline, whatever, if we can talk about it and it helps somebody to see all the resources that we have as Catholics, then man, I'll do it. I'll talk about it. We could spend an entire night talking about rifles. It'd be fun.
No.
We'll talk about rifles. I believe in our Second Amendment rights.
Yeah.
We talk about rifles. We could talk about, you know, canning corn or whatever. I will let somebody else talk about canning corn because I don't know how, but I like to eat corn. So we can, you know, that will be my contribution to talk about that.
But and that's the thing, hopefully with the Tactical Catholic and the other shows that we're planning on doing on the Fiat Ministry Network, we want the best and a way to evangelize, and this is just so powerful of a way. And I just want, on a side note, here's the website that you were talking about with the Knights of Columbus, and I just wanted to show everybody that, and it has a lot of stuff. I'll bring it back over, and I mean, I just have to get involved. You know, it's one of those things I gotta get involved, and it's just a great organization, and that's one thing. You know, moving over here, and you know, you're kind of. I was from Pennsylvania, and you're kind of new and trying to make friends. And you know, the best friends are people that go passionate to church every week. You know, it's one of those things, and that's one thing I'm learning about over here is just having the opportunity to meet new people. And the Knights are probably the strongest men there are in their faith, and that's one thing that you have. But
it's my special guest for the evening.
Yeah, it's a great guest.
Thank you. Oh, you keep it. Here, you sit in this chair. Well, and I'll tell you the thing that got me to actually meet more guys in the church, just a network of other men, was the Knights. Because, you know, here's a group of men that are more than just Joe Sixpack in the pew. These are guys that want to do stuff. And of course, I was intimidated. I thought, man, there's no way that I can do all the fish fries and the community service and the literacy groups and the Right to Life and all. I mean, they do everything in my parish. And so, you know, talked to a couple of Knights and okay. Yes, I know. So they could say, well, hey, there's no way you can do everything. Yeah. And no one Knight does everything. Right. Even though it seems like there are a couple of guys that may. So you get in and you go to a meeting and the guys say, hey, we're going to go help out the Sisters of Charity, or hey, we need a couple of guys to help work on the rectory or something. And you say, oh, hey, I'm not doing anything Saturday, or I've got some time in the next couple of weeks that I could volunteer for the MR Drive or one of our fundraisers or some, you know, service project, and you jump in when you can.
Yeah.
But along the way, I'm meeting so many guys that their dads like me or their granddads, and they're able to say, well, hey, let me tell you something, young buck. But that's cool for me because, you know, and I talk to my dad almost every day, but to have some other guys here in this council that I look up to because they're hitting milestones before I hit them, having kids in college or having kids get married or pursuing religious vocations. It would be fantastic to have some advice. Yeah, and in the Knights, I've got that. So that's a cool fringe benefit of the fellowship that we have.
Yeah.
But, you know, I know other guys that aren't Knights that found the same thing in a parish scripture study or, you know, even in the rosary groups, people that are going through consecration to Jesus through Mary, they're building great community in that. So, you know, I encourage guys all the time, just find something in your parish that's going on jump in it. If it's a monthly blood drive, something,
Right.
jump in it, because you're going to meet folks and start to build that community. Because I mean, really, to me, that's one of the best parts about the faith. The fact that whether I'm in Cleveland, if I drove up to Cleveland to see you, then I know that I'm going to be able to find a church, and we're going to be able to go to mass. And even though it's different people,
Right.
it's the same mass.
Yep.
And we have that bond. That's cool. You and I could go to Ukraine right now and not know the language at all.
Right.
And go to a mass.
Yep.
Even a Byzantine mass, we could go and at least have a clue of what's going on and have a shared faith. I mean, that's fantastic.
Oh, it's amazing. And yeah, that's one thing I don't know. That's one I'm trying to figure out why in the sense of how the Protestants can get anything out of what they're teaching, and they do it, and I think they do. I'm not saying, because that's one thing I noticed about when I went to a Protestant get together with young adults. Everybody was hugging each other. They're very loving in their sense of their faith.
Oh yeah.
But I think they don't have everything that we have, but we can learn from them. I guarantee Catholics can learn from Protestants, and Protestants can learn from Catholics, and we can all get along. But it's kind of like, it's amazing that how we can be anywhere in the world and there's a mass going on.
Yep.
That's the really cool thing. And Jay in the chat room has a question. Why, Andy, did you pick Tactical Catholic as your website?
Yes, this is a very strategic. When I was trying to get back on the web, now understand, I've been off of the internet competitively for about 4 years. I had a blog years ago talking about my conversion story. I was doing speaking engagements. Really, that started to become an idol for me. So that and some issues with identity theft, I just got out totally.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a total consecration to the Blessed Virgin, or to Jesus through the Blessed Virgin. And yeah, you are talking. You're talking. We'll let you have your interview in a little bit. So there were all these There were all these things going on in my life, and that were happening through the intercession of the Blessed Mother. And I said, man, I've got to get back on the internet and start talking about it. So I started another blog.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, what am I going to call it? And at the same time, I've been reading a lot of survivalists, and, so all these, these people, these cool prepper websites. Now, I'm not a prepper. I do believe that we should be prepared. I want to take steps, but I'm not like doomsday bunker guys.
Yeah,
that
right.
you see on TV. But man, I love watching those shows, because I think, man, that guy understands. He has raised rabbits, and he has enough rabbits to feed his family for years and years, and he's grown all these vegetables. And almost all of these people on the TV, they all have guns. And, I'm a big believer in Second Amendment rights, and big believer in First Amendment rights as well. And I kind of started having a bond with these people. Now, I'm not a Tea Party or a libertarian per se,
Right.
but I have sympathies with these folks. And we agree on a lot of stuff, especially regarding the Constitution. So all their websites have this kind of military feel, and tactical seem like that. It sounds cool.
Yeah, it does.
If you look at the dictionary definition, I think that tactical, it almost is more short term. And I don't want people to read too much into that and think that this is just short term Catholicism, because it's not. It's just it's in that mindset of being intentional about our discipleship and being strategic. So whether it is being strategic about getting from your house to your place of employment without completely losing your mind in traffic and cursing at every car that gets in your way, that's a strategy. Maybe that's what you deal with. Maybe it's maybe your strategy needs to be with how to deal with just the interruptions that come during your day. You're trying to do a task at work, and you've got 3 or 4 managers coming and telling you what to do. Just being able to have some plans in mind and have a strategy makes all the difference in the world for how you're going to react to something. It's the reason why people go to first aid training. It's not because they're going to go out taping people up every day,
right?
But when something happens, people that have been trained know how to respond. And so our Catholic faith, we need to be that way with our Catholic faith. People need to understand our faith. They need to know their faith and know that it's not just for mass time.
Right.
That the Catholic faith continues once you walk out of that narthex door into the parking lot. And some of the rudest people I've ever seen in my life were trying to get to a donut after mass, or trying to get out of a parking lot to get to rallies or something for a burger. I'm like, dude, we just received Jesus. Let's be civil. Let's at least be kind and wave at me before you try to run me over.
Well, that's one thing now where it's kind of a nice thing to have, is to have our daughter going to we call it CCD. There's a couple PR, and it's just like we can then go to mass, and then there's no rush because we have to pick her up, and we meet people, and we're in the sense of honoring God, in the sense of saying, hey, you gave us an hour. We're going to give you a little bit more, and we're going to allow our daughter to learn too. And that's one thing. They might be coloring or doing something really simple, but it's something that they can have and they can learn, because that's one thing. Right before the show, we were praying, and my daughter wanted 3 prayers other than just, we were talking to God, but we wanted solid, Our Father, and she wants to learn. Yeah. And that's such a cool thing to see.
That is awesome.
I mean, that's a cool thing to see. I know, with your kids and just teaching them and, preparing them, like our parish priest mentioned last week, they were getting a prayer from Father, who is all the teachers, all volunteers, all taking up their time, their weekend, in the sense of teaching our kids, and they're getting a prayer and being praised on and hands on, but mentioning of our priest was mentioning, we are the parents are the most important part and teachers to our kids to keep this faith going, because out there right now it's scary, and I know in the sense that our kids don't even know what's going on right now, and it's scary in the Middle East. I can't imagine what families are over there are going through. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
and
we don't have the same. We're really privileged here that we're relatively safe. We don't have people kicking in our houses and painting our house and saying, you got to get out of this state or you're going to burn you and kill you. But there are people in the world right now that are dealing with that, and not just in the Middle East, but in other countries too. Yeah. And good grief, we need to, and that's another reason for the Tactical Catholics. We got to get our heads around our faith now, because when it comes time to choose life or death, we got to know where we stand. Right. Because I would tell you right now, if you go over, I read about a church getting knocked down over in China. If we go over to China right now, they're not really wanting to sit and argue about what color the carpet is or the critiquing Father's homily. Right. They're just grateful to get in there and receive Jesus in the Eucharist. And we need to appreciate that and learn from those folks, because they are absolutely living the faith.
Yeah, and there
are plenty of websites that tell you what's going on with those folks. It should. and I want to say it should make us ashamed, but it should definitely make us grateful for what we've got and want to embrace this faith that they're willing to die for right now.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people that we go to mass with, including myself. I mean, if somebody sticks a gun in my face, I'd like to think that I'm going to be brave.
Yeah, that's.
I might be scared to death.
Yeah, I know.
I've never had a gun in my face before. I hope I never have to have that.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. That do you think a martyr and all the saints that were martyred and saying, I love God over what's going to happen to myself right now. I mean, that's selfish. That's in the sense that in the sense that we're losing some, but that person most likely will be a saint, giving up their lives for God, and it's selfishness. I mean, and it's the way that some people that we don't understand that. That's a sense that how do they do that? It's almost above my comprehension to understand that I'm going to give up my life for God. And that's really just amazing but then you think about what Christ did. I mean, the suffering and just watching the Passion of the Christ. I mean, I am just bawling after every time I watch that. But it means so much to me to know that he did that for us, and it's so powerful. And so, I mean, it's just a great opportunity to know that we need to serve our Lord right now, because we don't know, either tomorrow there's going to be an accident or something comes, like you said, with a gun in our face. Right? So I mean, we need to live the life, not just every weekend mass, throughout the week. I mean, that's one.
Well, and that's here's the thing that I think I'm learning, the principle, if you will.
Yeah.
That it is real easy. I think it's easier for us to come to a point where we say, if somebody came in and put a gun to my head, I would say, and I would be willing to die for Jesus.
Uh-huh.
I think, though, that if in order to do that, that you and me and everybody we know has to be willing to live for Jesus every day, just like you said, that we live for Jesus in that selflessness.
Yes,
that's
the word.
For the good of someone else. That's what love is. Because, I mean, look at our culture. Look at what is celebrated here is just physical attractiveness, right? That's why the porn business is so big,
right? Because
people don't want intimacy; they want sex. They want physical pleasure and sensuality, but that's not what marriage is. That's not what love is. Love is self-donation. So it's putting up with one another and loving each other when we're not in the best of moods, and welcoming children into the world, and doing the things, giving up, the big cruise because, hey, we can't take the baby on the cruise, so let's do something as a family,
right?
And these are the decisions that families have to make. And to me, now I'm not putting that on par with martyrdom, but I think that if we're not willing to make the sacrifices in those small ways, chances are we might not be brave enough to do them in the big ways when it counts.
Right.
So it's almost like we're in training for that. The reason why Christians got in so much trouble in the first century was because it's not because they weren't making sacrifices to the Greek and Roman gods. It's because they were doing the things that the Roman culture would not, such as rescuing the children that were abandoned on doorsteps. So the Christians were accused. So, they are taking care of our citizens better than we do. I mean, they're making us look bad.
Yeah, right.
How awesome would that be if our collective morality as Christians put other people to shame, that we were outgooding other people, if I can make that word up, outgooding. We were doing more good.
Yeah.
Rather than for us to sit around and complain and, I don't like this bishop appointment, or I don't like Father so-and-so. And, I mean, golly, we can spend so much time arguing over stuff and not enough time showing our love. And because you know what people are going to focus on? They're focused on the bad stuff.
Right.
They're going to focus on that lady that snapped at them in mass because their baby cooed. Or they're going to focus on, the fact that there weren't any blueberry donuts after mass and they really wanted one. But I don't know if your parish has donuts, but I know a lot of them do.
Yeah.
But that's what people remember, the bad thing. I mean, and I think that's true even of customer service, that you're like 7 times greater to get feedback on the negative than you are for the positive. So, if we're living our lives in the way that people have a positive taste in their mouth when it comes to Christianity, I think that's the way to go. And if I can sit here on this show talking with you and any of the guests that we're going to have on in the future, and you cool folks in the chat rooms and on the Twitterverse or wherever we happen to be, if we can sit here and say, yeah, you know what, I screwed up on that, I struggle with that, but here's what I'm trying to do, here's what the church teaches. Or being prepared, whether it's talking about canning food or using coupons or however those people raise rabbits. I want to have that guy on, actually, because he ended up making a flamethrower out of rabbit pellets. True story.
Oh, really?
It was awesome. But I mean, there's so much that we can learn from each other and help each other to grow if we'll just kind of connect. And I really hope we can do that with this program.
Yeah.
And whether you're connecting through the Fiat Ministry Network website, or whether you're connecting through any of the websites that any of the hosts and myself operate, just connect with each other,
right,
and connect with your parish and start to build that community, because that's, I think, the best way for us to start growing up as men in particular, but Christians in general.
Yeah, and I think that's a great ending, and definitely go to Andy's website and tacticalcatholic.com, and also we'll have all the shows that Andy does with us on Fiat, and we'll also let you have them on your website, so you can go wherever you want. They're all it's a free reign, and but one thing we want to ask, and before we end the show, and if you go to the website, Fiat Ministry Network, you can support us with any kind of donation with Amazon right at the top of the video, or you can mail a check to Fiat Ministry, P.O. Box 550, Geneva, Ohio 44041. And also, I want to let everybody know that this week on the Joe Miller Unplugged show, coming up is Ray Sullivan, the 29th. All of these shows are 9 p.m. Eastern, and he has Catholic Bible 101, and he's apologetic. He does apologetics and has every topic. I've looked on the website, has every topic about the Catholic faith. So it's going to be a great show. He's going to be talking about Mary, his devotion to Mary. So that's one of the shows. Andy's going to come on to Joe's show on October 5th. And, yay! And then we're going to have Jerry Usher October 12th.
Awesome.
And so we got some great shows going on. We are going to go, we're going to take a 1 week break. I'm going to a Cavaliers practice to see LeBron. So we'll come back in 2 weeks.
Suffering for the Lord.
Or I could get back here by 10. I mean, it's a great, no, I'm just kidding. But we'll do in 2 weeks. And I know we're also excited about Alan Smith is going to have Hungry for More. That's his new show. So we're really excited about the Fiat Ministry Network and building all these great shows. Yeah. And so this is great. Andy, you did a great job. Thank you, Jay, for coming in this chat room. We will be back in 2 weeks. And it's going to be Wednesday nights. right at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 Central, for everybody in that area. So everybody, if that might change, but we're putting it about 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 9 Central. So things could change, but we made it through. It's about 11 here, and Andy, have a great evening, and thanks for starting this show. Is great conversation.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.